right? Can we start? So good morning everybody. Nice to be in a webinar class. This reminds me of 1994 when I started the SPJIMR. I was new to teaching, new to a class with bright students. Now this is again a new experience for me. Speaking on a webcam and not knowing what the participants are doing, fiddling with the mobile or whatnot. So nice to be with you, and you know what we're going to deal with today. Let me tell you the topic. Prospering in hyper-competitive B2B markets. And I'll explain each of these terms so that we're on the same page in a minute. And the question we want to answer is, in your company, is your sales force geared for this challenge? Are they ready? My objective in conducting this webinar is very simple. My objective is to really reform or change the way we look at the problem. Because my fundamental proposition for today is, it is because of the way we manage our sales force and go to the market, we are finding it difficult to grow. It's not about our products, it's not about our prices, it's because of our sales force that our growth is getting stunted. And the whole webcam, this session is focused on this single point. Now let me tell you how are we going to go across. I've got about 12 slides, and I'll take a couple of minutes on each and then open it up for question answers. And I want this, and how do I go about this? More like a conversation. While I'm speaking, I anticipate you will find some of the slides will force you to introspect, reflect. How does it work in your particular organization? It's not about a general. We're talking about what happens in your company. And that's where I'm trying to customize this webinar so each one can understand. You will also understand the limitations of a webinar. When I look at the attendees, we have massive heterogeneity. We have people from Fortune 150 companies, and we have participants from family managed businesses. So addressing such a heterogeneous audience is a challenge, and you want to keep that in mind. So let's get to the definitions part. So when we use 4 major words, and we should be reasonably clear what each means so that we are on the same page. The first word is prospering. Now prospering is something which can be highly debated. Each one has his own measure of what is prospering. It could be company specific, it could be person specific when it comes to a family managed company. But when it comes to a public company, you will find it is return on capital employed. It is about relative market share. So if your return on capital employed is falling and your market share is falling, you are not actually prospering. Whereas you will find in some of the family managed companies, they will say it doesn't matter, we are making a little more money than last year, regardless of the fact that the profitability has fallen. So this is something you want to understand from your perspective. The second one is hyper competitive. Now when we say hyper competitive, what do we mean? It simply means supply is more than demand. And the nature of competition is again different from what it was before in terms of the composition of the competitors. where competitors were small, your competitors coming from a global angle, and you have a situation where you don't have a product advantage. So invariably you'll find prices fall faster than costs in such markets, and that's what you would like to define as a hyper-competitive market. The next one is B2B. We are talking about situations only where we are talking to another business. We are not talking about FMCG, or you're not talking about consumer-related businesses. We are talking about sales from business to business. And the last point is Salesforce. Now, this is something you want to focus on. Now, when I say Salesforce, it means any person in a company who handles customers, who is responsible for getting orders. So, in a consulting company, it could be a partner. In a family management business, it could be the owner or the owner's son or daughter or uncles. And in a large company, it could be a separate sales team, sales manager, sales force, product-wise, market-wise, etc. So these are the four things you want to keep in mind as we proceed ahead. So now when you look at the scene from the eyes of a CEO and look at the sales department or the sales force, people who are getting in the orders, getting in the customers, what do you think are the symptoms that a person sees? What are the complaints that he has? You will find first one is an opaque sales pipeline. And why do I say an opaque sales pipeline? It is taking invariably much more time to get a customer or even get an order from an existing customer. Previously it was on a telephone call or single visit, maybe a couple of visits, but now it is difficult to forecast when will the sales cycle close. When will the sales cycle close? The second problem we have, because of pipeline, is conversion rates. You pursue 10 inquiries and you find you're able to convert maybe 2 of them. Previously, ratio was much better, but now it is a vicious cycle. Because we have less orders, we pursue more and more opportunities. More opportunities pursue, you will find success rates are falling. So that's what is in the pipeline before the order comes. What happens when the order comes? First of all, it's a weak order book. You rarely hear of companies who have orders for the next 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, which was quite a scene before. And what is the second problem that we have? Thinner margins. Margins we used to don't seem to happen. And what is the next problem that we have? Payment cycles. You may get the order, the payments are 30 days, 90 days, 120 days, where it was 120 days, now it goes to much more. Just like you can't forecast the sales pipeline, you can't forecast your cash flow. You have 4 problems, which are simple symptoms. You can add depending on your company, but these are symptoms across companies. What I've observed in the last 4 decades of my exposure to B2B businesses. Now the question you want to ask, why is it not moving? No, you want to take a minute to put down on a piece of paper what do you think are the reasons for these symptoms. Take a minute and put down. You want to say, okay, reason one, in my company, this is the reason. Number two, this is the reason because of which pipeline is weak and order book is weak. So if you want to understand what's the problem, if I understand the situation well, invariably you will find we will talk about external paradigms, external shifts. The first one that we'll talk of, finding a little difficulty in moving this. There's a noise. The computer is playing some tricks with me. Just hold on for a minute. So when I talk about external paradigm shifts, the first one people will tell you is my product is no way different from what my competitors offer. There is nothing left but price is what I can offer. You know, that's the first problem that people talk about. What is the second problem people normally talk about? The word problem may not be right. The second reason they point out is, oh, customers are becoming very powerful, very knowledgeable. The decision-making unit, the people involved in taking decisions are not green behind their ears. They have now exposure to suppliers across the world. Internet has made everybody equal. So there's no information asymmetry which you could exploit. So the first one is you have no product advantage, you have no information advantage. The third reason you will find is that the way the customers buy these days, there's no heart. They're all very tough negotiators. Each one wants the best. And given that we have no information advantage and no product advantage, how does one sell? You have powerful customers, products which are almost similar, and you have no information or something to add. What does one do? And then of course, the whole thing gets complicated with competition. You have competition which is very intense. You don't have competition only from your industrial estate. You have competition from across the world. Across the world. You get a point. So you have four fundamental reasons. In some of the other industries, you will find we have a regulatory and governance category. You will find in the case of pharma industries, things are dramatically changed because of the rules and regulations are changing. Same in the case of the finance industry. Rules and regulations have changed so much that there's not much you can do. Now you will take a minute and think whether these are the reasons or are these how the context has changed. You can, if I take an analogy, a metaphor, a 5-day cricket has become a 2020 day, 2020 over day. Given that the game has changed, the way the customers have changed, the competitors have changed, the product context has changed, you want to think now how has your firm responded. You want to think for a minute and put down, oh, this is what we have done different from what we have done before. This is what we have done different, which is different from what we have done before. And you'll find the answers are not very satisfactory. Next. I have bad news for you on this context. All the reasons that you have seen it before, whether it's regulatory, whether it's product, whether it's customers, the competitors, are all pertaining to blaming a changed context. There's nothing you can do about it. It is in our response that we have serious issues. What my observations over the past 4 decades has been, especially in the last 2, we have grossly underestimated 2 things. We have grossly underestimated the change. We have simply felt as though a little more of the same, rather than understanding the game has changed from 5 days to 2020. The rules simply, ground rules have changed, but we don't seem to have given enough importance to it. And consequently, the second point. We have failed to respond internally in terms of a configuration, in terms of what sort of people, what sort of structure, what sort of systems, what's the process to have. We are simply not, it's basically taking, oh, things will happen, things will change, let's wait. It's wait and watch rather than we normally have what is called a proactive response, we have a reactive, and in many cases you find we have neither. What we have done is basically gone for a tactical approach. Oh, our salespeople are not able to close. I get companies, not small, big companies, Fortune 500 companies coming in and saying, our team is not able to close sales. Can you conduct a half-a-day session on negotiating for them? Expecting a half-a-day thing is going to change a deep-rooted problem. And when you talk to them, like any consultant does, to understand the scope and then rescope it, then you realize the whole system stinks. They don't have a process in place. Each one is playing their own game. So tactical approaches, incentives, taking them on a Bangkok trip, things of this type, thinking that things will happen. Or there are incremental changes. Oh, we have small number of teams. Can we take some more people? Can we change the territories? Can we change the people in terms of territories? Incremental changes, expecting that things will happen. Or still worse, think about it. What to the third one? We call it hustle. Call them for a meeting, motivate them, threaten them, use a carrot or a stick, but simply try to infuse energy and thinking that things will happen. The broken system, just having energy doesn't work. Simply doesn't work. So it's bad news. It's across companies, whether it is smaller or larger companies, whether family managed companies, the problems are the same. We simply have failed to take this important step and how to move forward. Let me help you to think more with the help of some questions. I'm going to ask you to take some questions for your own company to understand where exactly you stand. So where we thought the change context was a problem, that's not the context has changed. From a 50-50, from a 5-day cricket, it has become a 20-20 cricket. So that's not the problem. Problem lies in the way we are responding. And to understand that, I'm going to ask you 3 simple questions. Look at the first question. Ask yourself, what are we counting on to win? Take a minute to think. Think of the order which you're currently pursuing, an existing customer where you're finding or order getting is becoming a problem. Think of it, ask yourself, what are you counting on to win? Why should the customer give you an order in spite of having half a dozen other options? Is there any good reason? And you want to ask this question not just to one person, but at 3 different levels in organization. Ask the person who's actually going and meeting the customer, ask him this question. Why do you want to win this order? Why do you want to win this customer? Ask the head of the department or marketing. And then ask the top person in the company. What do you think is the reason I'm going to win? What are the chances that I'm going to get the order in spite of competition? And more important, if you want to go one step further, why do you want to get the order and at a profitable price? You will find the answers are going to be difficult. You will find this one question will let you have sleepless nights and something which you are not addressing satisfactorily. Let me give you a second question. You want to ask this question. And these 2 questions are critical questions. What exactly is the role of a sales force? And I'm talking about the word role. Normally people will answer off the gut, oh, their job is to get orders, their job is to get customers. But that's the outcome. What is the work they have got to do so that will happen? If you talk about cricket metaphor again, you have to get 40 runs in 16 balls. That's the output. But what is the work that batsman has got to do so that can happen? What's the work the bowler has to do so that it will not happen? It is about the work, not about the outcome. We very often mix up these 2 things. And for that work, do they have a valid sales process? Is there a proven method, or is it no? I know what to do. Let me jump. It's a mystery. They have hunches. No. This is what will work here. That is what will work there. It's more of a Christopher Columbus sort of situation. Oh, I'm going to discover India, and you discover United States. People think of sales, customer scenario more as a mystery than as a systematic process. It may not go into an algorithm, but certainly could go one step forward. Very few companies I've seen where the role and the process are templated. It's not clear. It's not clear in 99% of the companies. And even if it is clear, you will find sales people violate it again and again. Each one says, I'm a hero, I'm a lone ranger, I will jump on the horse, and I'll get it done. I know how to get it done, don't tell me how to do it. And this is especially true in the case of family managed companies, where people think they know what's the magic. It's still the dark magic area, I know how to do. And sales management is very much in the stage where medicine was way back in 1850s to 1900, where people didn't know. People said, any will try this, we'll try that, again. Today, medical science is coming to be more of a systematic process. But sales is still very much in 1850 to 1875, maybe 1900. That's where they are. But you'll find people are the most confident. Oh, I know what to do. Karna kya hai? But give them a one peg or second peg, and then you realize neither the full or the process is clear. And again, this question you want to ask at 3 different levels. The person is actually going to the market, meeting customers, people at the manager level, and people at the executive level, and find out whether you are happy with the answers. And this problem is very much aggravated in the case of family managed companies where the owners or the sons are themselves into the sales process. Let me give you a third question, which may be more valid for the larger companies, not necessarily for the smaller companies. At what organization levels are sales management issues discussed? Instead of sales, you can put the word customer management. At what levels are customer management issues discussed? Is it discussed only in sales department? Is it discussed only in the sales and marketing? Or is it executive level or at the board level? At what levels are we talking about? And you will find again the answers are not very comfortable. So now you want to think the reasons or the root causes why we have such a sad state when it comes to sales management. There are very few companies who excel, very few who excel in this. Majority, 99.5% companies have serious problems. You understand why is it so? Why is it so? Now let me build on this, give you some food for thought. I'll give it in the form of an equation. Legacy background multiplied by target pressure. Now, legacy background, I've given you an explanation of this. First one is the mindset. Who heads the sales function in most companies? You will find invariably these people who have spent 15 or 20 years in a previous paradigm where ground rules were very different. And the time changes to come into a 20-day game and then apply the 5-day methods, you find things are becoming difficult. So the openness to new ideas, readiness to accept that it change itself becomes a problem. And as these people move higher, you will find many of them already burnt out. Ideas which are set in the previous and then you have the static pressure. Oh, we have to get orders. Getting that order, getting the factory, keeping the factory running, the short term becomes a bigger issue. And then issues of change take the back seat. So it's about small course corrections and getting things done. In larger companies, the structure becomes a problem. Getting any change done because of the hierarchical systems, that becomes a problem. And so do the systems. Once people get used to a particular way of working, getting them to accept a newer system becomes a problem. And this is invariably true for companies which are used to people working for a long time. Think of examples where in companies which were dealing with basically distributors, suddenly you will find you're dealing with large consolidators, large people. You will find the same people who are dealing with those smaller stockists or smaller businessmen are finding it impossible to deal with a newer system. So when you look at the reasons why we're not responding, it is not because markets are becoming tougher, it's because our response has been very poor. And it's vitiated by this legacy background and the target pressure. So what is the way forward? What is the way forward? When it comes to sales department, my observation is there are two things to be done. One is you have to manage deep change. Deep change not just in the structure system, but first in the mindset, the way we think, not realizing that this becomes the single most important barrier, especially for medium and small companies, where the owners themselves are involved in the sales function. And then this in the context of meeting your current targets. It is not either or. It is managing both. You have to manage change at the same time. You have to achieve targets. And when I look at this, sales department as a curious outsider, I am invariably drawn to the energy of frog and boiling water. Many companies you will find are like the frog which is already there in the water. It was cool, it was nice, you were enjoying it. You are thinking you are having a sauna bath. And as the heat builds on, you find it difficult to change. Whereas companies which are recently started don't have this problem. They started with a new paradigm. They don't have the old paradigm barrier weighing on them. So you have to manage both the change as well as the current targets. Right? At this point, what I've tried to do is to make you think, make you more curious, to revise your way of approaching the Department of Sales, from where all orders, all cash comes. Please understand, customers are the only place that all the money comes in. Everyone else in this company is consuming that cash. And if that department is outdated, God save you. Right? At this point, let me take some questions. Does anyone want to send any questions, or things are very clear? The question is, how do you manage this deep change while overachieving? Managing change needs patience, while sales department is keen to be one of the most impatient departments. Any light on this? So you have two parts to the question. First one is, how do you manage this deep change? Now, this is the subject of a different webinar. My objective in this particular webinar was to highlight the problem. Managing deep change is a topic by itself. We'll deal with that in a separate issue. The second part of the question is, managing change needs patience, which is very true. And sales department is known to be one of the most impatient. Now, this is a very important observation. Thinking yourself street smart, think yourself action first, thinking later, is one of the weaknesses of our sales departments. And this is again something which needs to be addressed, which we'll do later. It is not a virtue, it's a liability. What happens in the case of auto ancillary supplier? I don't know what you mean by this question. Where customer is clearly focused on price. This is one of the most common questions which is asked, and this is where you will find salespersons reveal their utter incapability for this profession. It is not about sale. The customer is not buying a product. It is our job to create value. If it's only price which is required, what is the need for a sales force? What is the value addition? Why keep a sales force? Why spend money and then sell at a lower price? To destroy value? And this again, value creation is something you must understand. What is the value company creates? What's the value salesperson creates? That job has to be clear. Having said that, you also realize there are some customers who are very knowledgeable, very capable, who are going to buy only on reverse option, That's a segment, and then they want to choose. If nothing else matters but price, those customers, you have a choice. And you will find the reverse auction is not a growing segment, it is a less of a growth sector. And we'll deal with this if you require in a separate webinar by itself, because this is one area you will find salespeople have to really understand their value. They don't think they're creating value, they're only destroying value. How do we manage unfair competition? If competition has a long-term plan of losing money to earn market share, especially if they are more deep-pocketed than you, Amazon against Flipkart, or today Jio versus any of these existing players. Now, you'll always understand there is a game in the market. First, we talk about great products, and once the product being equal, then we talk about price. Once that happens, then people want to, oh, I can offer better service, I can better solutions, and then again you'll find competition catches up. Then you'll find you go still further, and then you say, no, we'll have custom intimacy, we'll have loyalty plans. We look at all those, and then again competition catches up, and then you'll find a time comes when it is about deep pockets. People who have deep pockets want to eliminate competition. It's not about customers then, it's about competition it dominates. For example, you have heard about Bayer and Monsanto. So you'll find people don't then think it's about who has the money, who is going to control the game. So in many segments you'll find, especially those where product differences are very minimal, that you can't differentiate product solutions, ultimately you'll find the number of competitors will dramatically come down. This is almost like an axiom. And that's what we're going to see in the case of our telecom companies. I would like to understand more on the proven or suggested sales processes. Can we understand how and what sales process go? Again, we can address this in a webinar, or we can address this in a classroom atmosphere. You let me know, and we can do this. And this is one area where immediate improvements can happen. Immediate improvements can happen. Most sales functions, functional heads, I am sure, know of this reality and need to transform. Why then majority of them are unable to actually practice managing deep change? That's why I mentioned to you three problems: mindset, structure, and systems. In a smaller companies, it's a mindset. Kya karna hai? Things are working on, let's continue. The systems will change. And in the case of larger companies, you will find sales department doesn't have the clout. We will be able to take a risk of managing change if it is going to disturb. So you will be in better books of the top management, achieving your targets rather than saying, let me change. So it has to be a top management priority, supported by them, then it will happen. And you will find extremely good examples in companies like Godrej, HDFC, others, where you will find dramatic changes happen in the structure. At the same time, they are overachieving their targets. There are best case examples to follow this. In fact, whenever you will find things are not changing, you can blame it, put the blame on the top management, where they can see the problem, but they don't want to address it. Because each one has another 2 or 3 years to go, you just kya karna hai? Let it continue. How can you get rid of our old legacy sales processes with subjective rather than objective? Again, this can be treated as a part of another webinar where we can talk about a sales process, and then as a subset we can talk about how we change from the. This is only about highlighting the problem, making you understand where exactly we have the problem. I trust value creation depends on how clear an organization's strengths and weaknesses. Yes. Value creation happens at 2 levels. One is at the company level, in terms of what advantage you have of competitors. The second one is at the level of a salesperson, and that is where you want to understand this very clearly. You have a product which is almost identical to what the competitors are offering, and that's the situation in most companies. Then the question comes, what is the role of a sales department, and more specifically of the salesperson, in terms of what role has he to play? That's what we can address in a separate webinar. because it requires time by itself. It's not something which is easily understood. People simply think sales fellows, they're only a postman. They have to bring the price demands of the company inside, and the company side my policy. There is a role, there is a work to be done, which is not understood, and there's a process for it. One has to understand it. You will find when you go into any manufacturing department of any company, you will find they have systems in place, process in place, who will do what, everything is clear. And there's a proven method. This is how things have to be done. When we come to sales department, it is simply business work, magic. There are some people who can do magic, and things happen, I have done it. And things don't happen, market is in a bad shape. That's what. What if my company is ready to work with lower margins, but we are not? Again, you are taking the given that customers is the only price matters. There is a small segment. You can look at examples of Dow Chemicals did with customers who are very price focused. They started a separate business to address these customers. There's no point blaming or complaining. Question is, you want to innovative in the way you respond. You can't have a more competitive, commodity item than what Dow Chemicals sells. But at the same time, you will find they have taken up a system by which they have a concept called SPJIMR, by which they address these price conscious customers, and their customers happy and the company is also very happy. We can deal with this. Price issue is a major issue, and it can be a subject of a separate webinar where we can get to more depth on this. Articulating and finding a market gap should be sales. It is not about finding, it's about getting customers, getting money. This is only a means. Once you articulate and find the market gap, then who is going to get the customers and orders? And how are you going to do it? That's the challenge. The article finding market gap, should it be sales, should it be marketing? That again is a debatable issue. My question is whether customer is not just our customer, but also our media buyer and competitor, three-sided, okay? We have to relook the sales organization competency. What is your perspective? So when it's three-sided, so when it comes to getting the customers, it may be a little more complicated, but something we can discuss. I don't have an offhand answer for this question. Pressure to achieve the targets is killing the creativity of salespeople, and eventually they fail to respond to the changes happening in the market and how to make top management understand this fact, at the same time not being seen as an underachiever. Yes, you have a tough problem. If your top management is not able to see, they are blind and deaf, I don't think as a junior you stand a chance of making them realize they have some problems. It is, as I told you, it is a leadership issue, and the leadership can't see you have a problem. Don't expect that as a junior you're going to make it happen. It's better look for a better job. Right? Is there any more questions at this point? So anyone who has a particular topic like how to manage price conscious customers, or what should be the sales processes, if you would like it, we can have a separate webinar on each of those issues, which then you can get into the details in much more. If the external paradigms have shifted, does it require different competency in the sales people? I think it's an obvious question. If you have people like Gavaskar who are outstanding players in 5 decades, you put them into 2020, what do you think is going to happen? The game is different. Expecting that with the same competencies you can play a different game, lot of questions. In fact, I am surprised in some companies, because the salesperson has done well in a domestic market, they put that same person to an export market, where the situation is very different. The fellow gets foxed, he doesn't know what to do. Thinking, oh, he has succeeded here, he will succeed there. What is the work to be done? What are the competencies? What is the outcome? You want to be very clear. A little more systematic approach will help. Are there sales process outsourcing companies that handle the resources and work on retainer, commission basis? Under what circumstance do you think it is better to outsource sales? What circumstances do you think it's better to outsource sales? If you're going to outsource sales, what the fuck are you going to do in a company? I find the situation exactly the opposite. In companies like Reebok or Apple or Adidas or Nike, any of these big companies, they prefer managing the customer. They want to own the customer relationships and they want to outsource all the expense of manufacturing, purchasing, HR. They want to outsource it. What is the customer getting and the money getting processes they want to own? And here you're telling me you want to outsource your sales process. You want to first think whether that's a right thing to do. And the right thing to do, you will find in many companies they have dealers, distributors who do this job. Where instead of company person doing the selling, they normally have a dealer or distributor who does the job. There are agents who do this job. That's the cost benefit analysis which you have to think of. How does the dynamics work in a recession? Dynamics of what? We are talking of three key terms. We are talking about the role, we are talking about the process, and then we talk about the barriers to change. They don't change in the recession, they become even more critical because you are working with a smaller scope, there are not so many opportunities, and if you are not clear in terms of what will work and what will not work, you are going to be the soup. You're really going to be the soup. The recession only makes reality harder. It's right glaring in your face. It brings out who are the men and who are the boys. Right? Thank you very much. I think we have maintained our time. And in case you have any questions, you can send a mail either to me or to Aditi, and we can see how you want to take things forward. We can take things forward from there. Thank you very much.